Our water connection acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land throughout Australia and their connection to country, sky, water, and community. We extend our respect to the traditional custodians of the place where you are listening. This episode is recorded in Ghana country, Nam, Wurundjeri, Woi country, from Phnom Penh, Cambodia, with a special connection to Cameroon country. What is keeping the water industry up at night? And how can young water professionals help solving it? How do young water professionals shape the future of our sector? And what does it really take to make our voices heard? Why should everyone care about water? And how do we make it visible beyond our industry? In this episode, let us explore some of the big questions the industry has with some amazing and passionate young water professionals. My name is Jess Bohorquez. I'm on a mission to increase your water curiosity, and this is the Season 2 finale of our Water Connection. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Season 2 finale of this podcast. What an incredible journey this season has been. I want to start, of course, with a massive thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us and supporting the podcast throughout 2025. This episode, of course, is also a chance to thank the Australian Water Association, who has been this season's sponsor through the Chris Davis AM Fellowship. We're so grateful for the support in helping us bring in these conversations to life and give us the tools to keep this podcast going in the future. And of course, happy National Water Week. What a perfect time to celebrate the people, the ideas, and the energy that keep our sector moving forward. This year's theme is Bring Water into Focus, which I think is brilliant. And it's a call for action that encourages all of us to see water not just as a resource, but as that vital thread that connects everything in our lives. For this finale, we're doing something a little bit special. After I was honored of being named the 2025 Young Water Professional of the Year, a few people suggested I should actually turn the mic around and be the guest in my own podcast. I thought that was a fun idea, but instead of doing it alone, why not making it a full conversation? So today, I'm honored to be joined by the 2023 and 2024 winners of this award. And together we'll have a three-way interview exploring our career journeys, the challenges of our industry that our industry faces, and reflecting on the role of young water professionals in the industry. And that's not all. To round out the episode, we will also be joined by the president of the Australian Water Association, who will share some reflections on these topics and join the conversation as we wrap up this season. So let's get started. This is enough from me. This is a very special National Water Week finale. I'm honored to be joined today by Chelsea Hayward and Sam Skinner. Chelsea is the 2023 AWA Young Water Professional of the Year. She is a process engineer with broad experience tackling current and emerging challenges in water and wastewater infrastructure. Her work spans from planning, design, and project management, with a strong focus in adaptive planning for a resilient water future. Chelsea is passionate about using her technical expertise to create positive impact. Therefore, she's currently based in Cambodia, which is incredible because she's volunteering with Engineering Without Borders to create household sanitation solutions for water-scarce communities. And on the other hand, we have Sam Skinner. He is the 2024 AWA Young Water Professional of the Year. He is an associate process engineer for water at Gorkon, specializing in hydrogen, energy, water, and oxygen projects that support various water utilities. He's dedicated to advancing the water industry's journey to net zero and beyond. Sam earned his PhD from Melbourne University and who was focusing on improving water recycling and sludge handling. He's nationally recognized for his innovative solutions to sustainable water management and community-focused engineering solutions. Welcome to a Water Connection, Chelsea and Sam.
Thank you. Hey, Jess. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Jess. What a pleasure it is to be here too.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining me. So the way that we have set up this for everyone listening is in three parts. Each of us will take a turn in leading like a section of the questions, while all of us jump in with some thoughts along the way. I think by now you probably have heard enough of me, so I will just pass it on to Sam.
Thanks, Jess. We threw it out to your listener base, the call out for what we thought the biggest challenges in the water industry at the moment, and looking forward to the challenges that the young water professionals will inherit. And we're very grateful to hear from your listener base, and we got some great responses who did answer that call about what the greatest challenges that we will be facing are. And there were some key themes that came through loud and clear. At the top of that list was around attracting and retaining talent and ensuring that we have the people and the skills to be able to deliver on the solutions that are required and that our communities depend on. Water security also loomed really large in the responses, whether that be supporting regional and remote communities in terms of their water requirements, and also at a really large scale about some of the big challenges that we're facing in water planning around providing enough water for data centers, hydrogen, the renewable energy transition, whilst also keeping pace with growing populations and changing climate. There's also recognition that we have benefited significantly from the foresight of past generations, and they've made long-term investments that we continue to reap the benefit from. But how do we then pay that forward and provide water services and keep strong for the future? It also comes down to how we as a society value water. And there's an element of public trust and legitimacy that remains really essential. And as does our ability to continue to innovate as an industry that can sometimes be quite risk averse, and for good reason. And of course, there is a number of broader perspectives around affordability, equity, the digital transformation, circular economy. I'm sure there's lots of others that are passion areas for your listeners. But those are some of the key themes that really came through about how to shape the future of water and ensuring a resilient water future. So let's dig into a couple of those in real detail. And that's the great thing about having the two of you is throwing it across to answer some of the big questions. So first of all, Chelsea, what do you see as the biggest challenge that we're inheriting?
Thanks, Sam. Yes, and I think, like you mentioned, it was really great to get those insights from the listeners of the podcast, and have a look into those, and absolutely agree with those key points there that you've already flagged, Sam. I'm really interested in going into that challenge around water security and access. And there we're talking about that reliable access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality of water for health, for livelihoods, ecosystems, as well as what you mentioned there around the industries and production. So I think it's really important there that we're not just talking about quantity, but also the quality of the water. And the challenge is that lack of water security and lack of access, which can stem from a range of factors. Again, Sam, you already touched on many of those, that the growing population, increased water consumption by both people and industries. And then we are also looking where we do have areas with that inadequate infrastructure and poor resource management that fails to balance everyone's needs as well. So I'm going to jump into a few statistics. So if we're just looking at the access side of things, over 700 million people lack access to water. And that number increases to 2 billion people when we're talking about safely managed water. So I just think that's mind-blowing. That's such a huge number, and just crazy to think that we have that many people in the world who don't have that access to safe water. And then talking on the water security side, and I think it's often talked about in terms of water scarcity. So another mind-blowing statistic is that 4 billion people, which is almost 2/3 of the world's population, experience severe water scarcity at least 1 month each year. And I think that issue is only getting worse as the years go by. And I think we're unfortunately going to see people being displaced and really facing some tough challenges as water scarcity becomes a greater issue around the world. And it really is like those challenges relating to water security and access have really far-reaching implications. And it's not just to people's health, but food security, education, economies, and politics as well. And then, of course, climate change is exacerbating all of this in many parts of the world. So really, yeah, large challenge that the industry is facing in terms of looking for those solutions. But of course, it's actually like the people, the communities around the world who are kind of facing the impacts of those challenges. And an interesting point that I guess, has come to mind more recently for me is that I think sometimes when we talk about these, it is talking a lot about potable water supplies, but it's important to acknowledge that that impacts. There are also impacts for water, for sanitation, the environment, that cultural water aspect as well. So me personally, and the work here that I'm doing in Cambodia is around sanitation for water scarce communities, and I hadn't actually really thought about it in that light before. But really, interesting that water scarcity is not just about potable water supplies. It's across many different areas as well. And another point that I did want to flag as well is that it is a challenge that's absolutely not experienced equally across the world. It is typically the poor and marginalized groups that are hit hardest, and there are also those huge gaps in water management between urban and rural areas. And so I'm quite clearly seeing some of these challenges up close in rural Cambodia. But I think it's really important to remember that there are communities in Australia, particularly in rural and remote areas of Australia, that don't have access to safe water supplies. So that's a lot about the challenge. I think there is still hope, though. We can definitely be doing something about it. Just to quickly touch on a couple of the key things that I see is definitely around that need for more systems thinking and integrated water resource management approaches to balance that social, economic, and environmental needs across time and sectors. I think we need to avoid those silos and have that systems thinking approach so that we can see the interconnections between different areas, water supply, energy systems, agriculture, and make sure that policies are designed to minimize the trade-offs and maximize shared benefits across those different areas. And then the last thing that I did want to touch on as well is just there is absolutely urgent action that is required to address these challenges. But I think in doing that, we need to ensure that the solutions and policies are not just short-term fixes. We don't want band-aids. We want to make sure that we're considering that long-term sustainability and looking at intergenerational thinking that balances today's needs with the health of water resources tomorrow and for generations to come.
Thanks, Chelsea. You're certainly living it over there in Cambodia at the moment. So it'd be great to, when you get back, have a debrief on everything that you've learned over there. Jess, your challenge that you're going to tackle here is one that's very close to home for you around attracting and retaining talent in the water industry. Do you want to run us through why it's a challenge and how we can tackle it in the future?
Yes, thank you. I love when this was kind of the one selected to me. Like I know, and thank you again to our listeners as well for all the ideas that we got, because it really gave us food for thought for this particular conversation. And also great idea, Sam. I'm gonna have Chelsea again next year so she can tell us all about Cambodia and all the wonderful things that she's doing over there. And I think going back to the challenge, I think attracting and retaining is something that we really need to work on. Like we have seen in currently and a nationwide, the need for investment in our sector is rapidly growing for all of the challenges. Part of the challenges that Chelsea was talking about, water security in remote areas and water security in our urban areas as well, and preparing ourselves for the future. And then in particular here in South Australia, we're seeing the vast amount of work that we have to do. And we're looking at that with eyes of like, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to have enough professionals that are going to have the skills and the passion to actually tackle all of these challenges. And I think it's for all of the other challenges that you, Sam, mentioned at the beginning and the ones that we got in the survey, this is one of the main ways that we can tackle it. We need people. Yes, AI is there, but AI cannot do our jobs. I can help us, but we're still gonna need so many brilliant people. And what happens, I think, in a way, is that we compete with other industries. We compete with industries that are a lot more established and like a lot more popular when you are kind of on your average STEM degrees and non-STEM degrees, because honestly, we need people from all a spectrum of like knowledge to work in our sector. But there are some other flashy things that are a lot more familiar to people around defense, around mining, around even roads, for example, here in South Australia is becoming, there's a lot of work coming on in there. And yet people don't see that, coming back to the topic of and the theme of National Water Week, bring water into focus on how none of those things will work without water. None of the things in our society will work if we don't have a good management of water. And it's not only, again, in security, but in quality, in integrated water management, in really taking a step back and say, how is the best way that we can manage this resource? And I think just giving it even more visibility to the STEM fields can help starting to get a little bit into the solution, because I'm fortunate enough of being part of a network of like scientists and researchers or women that are working across the country, and the kind of things we're seeing in even the changes in the degrees in universities is really worried, because they are kind of starting to cut some of the essential courses that I would call, for example, for an engineer and for any STEM fields that we cannot leave behind. We need to keep educating our people for these type of challenges that we're talking. And then in how can we tackle it, I think, and these will link a little bit with the section I'll talk at the end, is that we need to be more visible. We are incredibly good in the work we do in some of the urban areas where we are, that people do not think for a second, how is that happening? We are this series of magicians that just make that amazing like process that is open your tap and there is water there that is secure and safe to drink, which is also to link with what Chelsea was saying, is incredibly lucky that we're there. When you see some of the staggering stats that she's sharing with us, we're incredibly lucky to be in a place that we can do that. But we need to make ourselves more visible. At what level? At every level. How? I don't know. But the way of like transmitting this need and transmitting the importance that we have for now and for the future is a way to spark that curiosity in people to, maybe I want to work in this. And I have these sort of skills, maybe in engineering, maybe in marketing, maybe in social sciences. And there's always a way that you can connect it to work.
I think you touched on something that echoed through a lot of the responses, and it was around how we value water. And I think placing that higher value on water then cascades through the whole industry in terms of remuneration for people working in water, being able to allocate enough capital to be able to deliver major investments in upgrades. And I think that it does come back to the fundamentals of how we actually value the water. And it just magically appears when we open the tap. That doesn't
That's
just happen.
right. Totally.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think that was a really good compliment, because it's such a multi-layered kind of problem. But like what you say about the compensation is really important. We have to make sure that we have the resources that we need to do the upgrades, to do the thinking, to do things differently. And that's something that links us up with like the owners or the government or the different entities that run these businesses here in Australia, just to give an example.
And I know the cause of skilled migrants and providing pathways into roles in water is also a topic that's close to home for you. So I did just want to wrap this section up and say that we certainly didn't touch on all the challenges that were raised. It was great to do a deep dive on those two, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming when we think about the scale of those challenges. But we can take heart from the fact that the water industry has risen to past challenges and huge infrastructure development with foresight to the future, and we can take a lot of heart from the industry having done that in the past. And it does give me a sense of optimism that a broad range of challenges were raised, and they cover a whole range of different topics. And we do have so many skilled people within the industry, some skilled and smart people who have passion in a whole diverse range of challenges and are going to be tackling those in the future.
Yeah, definitely, Sam. And I think just in thinking this, and this morning I was at an event for mentoring. No one can solve all the problems by yourself. I think that's where the overwhelming part can come. Like it can come to me, and I in the season one I was asking each guest what is the biggest challenge, and I started getting like like this is a lot. Like how are we gonna do it? So I shifted a little bit, but it's not a problem. There are so many challenges. We just have to focus in a couple, in one, in half. We just have to do our best. But if all of us kind of work together and do our best, we should be able to get these things done. So thank you very much. I think that was a great dive into some of those big challenges. You did a really good summary at the beginning and then just dive in a little bit in some of those. We're going to shift gears a little bit now. So I'm going to pass on to Chelsea, who's going to lead the next part of our conversation, looking at how we're at the role the young water professionals are having in shaping the future of our sector.
Thanks, Jess. So yes, we have been discussing those very big and complex challenges that the water sector is facing, and I really think that we need that long-term action so that we are developing sustainable solutions. And we might be a little bit biased here, but I think that key to this is recognizing the role of young water professionals in the sector, and the impact that they can have, particularly when they are given the opportunity. So in my little segment, I'd love to talk about the role of young water professionals and then link that to the YWP of the Year award criteria, because it might help others who may be considering nominating for the award. So the criteria focuses on professional contributions to the water sector, contributions to a sustainable water future beyond primary professional roles, and then also some water industry advocacy as well. So if we start with professional contributions, I'm going to go to you first, Sam. What technical and professional skills do young water professionals bring to the sector? And what advice do you have for them in terms of looking to make meaningful contributions through their primary professional role?
It's a great question, and I take a little bit of a different spin on it, honestly. And I think that the technical and professional skills especially for young water professionals, take a back seat to enthusiasm and just a willingness to get involved, to show up, contribute, and make the most of every interaction that you have. And that's what really stands out. I know moving into next phases at work, it does get harder and harder to keep that fire burning over the long haul. And I think that's what's so exciting about each cohort of young water professionals is that fresh approach, the enthusiasm and just picking up ideas and running with them and making them happen and bringing them to life. So yeah, and it's that fresh energy and perspectives that the sector desperately needs. If you did twist my arm and want me to call out a couple of key skills, I'd say 3 that will stand you in good stead for the future, especially adaptability, flexibility, and analytical thinking to be able to deal with the ever-changing world that we're inheriting. On the advice front, my advice is to take advice, even this one with a grain of salt. Experiment and find out what works for you, and know that doing meaningful work isn't always fun and games. But if you lean towards roles and projects that align with your purpose, I think that's what sets the foundation for sustained impact and success in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I know many moments of kind of being stuck in the real nitty gritty detail in a giant spreadsheet and having to remind myself to take that step back and be like, okay, like this is actually, yes, a bit of the hard work that needs to be done. But if we look at the bigger picture of what this is contributing and making sure that we are, providing clean water to the people of Sydney, it's definitely, yeah, a good reminder that it's not necessarily always fun, but I think you can take that step back and remember what you're doing. And I really like that point around aligning with your purpose. Yeah. And I think young professionals are absolutely, like you said, Sam, they bring that passion, those fresh perspectives, and they're making significant contributions to the water sector through their professional roles. But I also think that there's many contributions going on through additional volunteer roles, whether it's within organizations or extracurricular activities. And I've seen many instances where it is young people who are driving initiatives. And I think that it comes down to a few things. I think, like we've said, we've drawn on that energy. And I think also probably when we're early in our careers, we have that bit more capacity to set aside some time for volunteering. But I also think I think it's that desire for impact and purpose, and the fact that we are early in our careers, we are younger, and we have a longer term stake in the future. And that creates a bit of a personal motivation to act now and be contributing to that sustainable future.
On the volunteering side, I think it's particularly true that you get out of it more than like the more you put in, the more you get out of it. And yeah, certainly seen it over the years. Throwing yourself into the volunteering side of things while you can, whilst it can be hard and takes dedication. Certainly, from a personal level, you also reap the rewards of that, whilst also contributing significantly.
Yeah. And while we're at it, did you want to share some examples of what of the volunteering activities that you've done in your early career?
Yes, so that would probably one that's fresh on the mind with yourself being in Cambodia. One of the most rewarding projects that I've been involved in was a piece of a pro bono project that I was a part of with a team from all over Australia, working with Engineers Without Borders to provide safe and reliable source of water for a remote community in Cambodia, in Kreti province. And we worked with the local engineers in Cambodia to lay all the groundwork to understand what the community wanted out of the project, and the purpose for the use of the water, the space that they'd set aside. They cleared an area for the treatment plant. The local engineers had worked to obtain grant funding for a solar pump to be able to feed the system, fix the broken pipework to distribute it to the community. And the last piece of the puzzle was to improve the quality of water through a water treatment plant. And yeah, over the course of a year, we developed up a 3D model for a treatment plant that then Engineers Without Borders were able to pick up that design and fine tune it for even further for local conditions. That treatment plant got built and it's operating. Shout out to Meg Cummins, who was over there, who sent through some great photos of the plant in operation. And that was quite a big team in the end from Australia and Cambodia who delivered that project, all generally out of hours, and it required a lot of dedication. But the reward was there, being able to see that actually get built and have an impact within the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a lot about this project, and I hope that while I'm here in Cambodia, I get to go have a little look around and see how it's going. Because yeah, it sounds like some really great work. So Jess, if we go over to you along the same lines, what are your thoughts on why young professionals are motivated to contribute to the water sector through volunteering or extracurricular activities, and what sort of examples do you have that you've been working on?
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. I think during my time in AWA, in the Young Water Professional Committee, and working with a lot of people that have come and go from the committee, I think the one common thread that I see is passion, and these people that are really connecting to that purpose of working in the water sector and what else can you do. And I think sometimes it comes from that feeling that, oh, I'm only working on a spreadsheet. It happened to me when I was in research. Like at some point I was doing more signal processing than treating a pipeline and of water as a resource, and having those extracurricular activities and that extra thing that connects you to your purpose was what kept me floating during that time. Then I decided to try something new, but it was always something that kept me grounded into why am I in the water sector. So I think connecting to that purpose, sometimes even beyond your professional role, is what kind of motivates people. Because sometimes even when you're starting your career, you also might be doing some of the mundane tasks. Let's put it like that. Like that, you're not there in the room where the big, nice, shiny, important decisions are made. You are like the one that receives the instructions of doing this tiny little part of the project, and sometimes it can be hard to connect to that. And being connected to a network such as the Australian Water Association, it provides you that way of connecting to really what is going on. So I think that is something that I've seen that it really is the driver of YWPs to do it. And it was for me at the beginning. And with time, it has become like a family, honestly, like a network of people that I can call my friends, and I can come and say, I had a terrible day because X was said in a meeting, and they can give me advice or even say, I've been in the same boat. So, because sometimes when you're with your own colleagues, there's stuff that you can share, but there's stuff that you can't. Or when you're with friends, they might be in another sector and they might not understand it quite the same way. So, having that support network and coming back, for example, me being a migrant, and I had to build that from absolute scratch. I had no one around me. And knowing now that I'm surrounded by people that are thinking about the same challenges and motivated by the same things is extremely rewarding. So for me to go to events and things like that is really fills my cup for that. Which is one of the main volunteering activities that really I've been focused since I came to Australia, which is being involved in the Young Water Professionals Committee here in South Australia, which at the moment I'm chairing with an amazing group of young water professionals that just I don't have to do anything. I just have to keep them motivated, and then amazing things happen. And then I've been fortunate enough to just be involved in school programs and things where I can go and talk a little bit more about that visibility of water that we talk. And of course, this project started as a volunteering thing. This is still something that I do kind of aside of my job, and it's a way to contribute and to put these conversations that are so refreshing out there so people can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% resonate with all of that. I think, again, like linking back to what I said before about like stepping back and seeing that bigger picture as well. It has definitely been having those kind of extracurricular activities on the side that has helped. And yeah, because that's like my ongoing involvement with Engineers Without Borders as well. Definitely, yeah, something that's helped to maintain that vision of like purpose and why I work in the water sector. Absolutely. And of course, the networking, I think, yeah, there's multiple people in Australia through the Australian Water Association, but then also with my involvement with the International Water Association as well. I've got people all around the world that I would say are part of my water family, because it really is like there are those really close connections and relationships that you build in the sector. Absolutely. So I'm going to throw it back to you now and head into the more water advocacy sides of things. So, Jess, what role do young water professionals have in that water advocacy side of things, and what makes them well placed to be those advocates for the industry?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And you, Sam, touched a little bit on that when you were talking about keeping that fire burning. And is that the earlier you're in your career, the easier that is to keep that going. And I would say as we advance in our careers, our job is to keep that going in someone else. Maybe we're not the ones doing the X, Y, or Z specific things for the events. For example, in my case, at the moment, I'm kind of more leading, which is a very interesting experience in itself, but then is keeping that fire burning in someone else. And I think young water professionals, we bring a lot of that. We bring a lot of curiosity, energy, and fresh perspectives in things. And we're also really connected, not only through these networking things, but we're also kind of a lot more in social media, in community networks, just being willing to have conversations outside of work, which tend to get a little bit harder when things evolve in our lives and we have other priorities. So I think those attributes makes us natural advocates for water when we talk to people outside of the sector, when you're like the typical barbecue and you're trying to explain what you do and things like that. Because we can do that. We can explain complex issues in ways that resonate with different audiences. And I think the one thing that I wanted to touch on is that one of the prime audiences that we have for advocacy is students. I mentioned it before that I've been to schools and I worked for a number of years in a university with university students, is that we, in the big scheme of things, I want to say, we were not students that long ago. Like I was not a student last year or the year before. It's been a while, but it's been less than maybe other people in the industry. So we're in this unique position where people that are students, they can still see themselves a little bit in us in positions that are like mid-career, early career, and can connect with those things. And I think that puts us in a great position to be advocates and to show them opportunities in the water sector. So I think that's kind of what makes us in a good place to be, which honestly ties perfectly with the next part of the conversation. Thank you for the rest. You can't imagine how good it is to just be here, not having to ask all the questions, but just listening and enjoying, and then be able to give a little bit of my opinion a bit more. So thank you. I mean, you guys are amazing hosts. So thank you very much for coming on board with this crazy idea. And in this last part, we just really wanted to tackle a little bit of like, how can we give more visibility to the sector? We're talking about bring water to focus. That is the theme that us as an industry have. As an industry, we want to bring water to focus. And I want to touch a little bit into how. How do we do it beyond our own circles? Because I've had this conversation with many people. We're amazing talking between ourselves. How do we
Mm.
connect with water community? And honestly, this is a question that keeps me up at night sometimes. And like, it's one of the reasons I started this project, because we really do need more people to understand just how important water is, coming back to the magic and the process and everything that we talked earlier, and the insane amount of work that goes into providing services that we can rely on every day. So I think I'll start with you, Chelsea. When you think about taking water conversations outside of your sector, where do you see that the biggest opportunities are?
Yes. Well, you've actually already touched on this, and it's probably for me raising it based on where I have some experience as well. But for me, that youth outreach space is a really big opportunity. Connecting with young people, whether it is school students or university students, I think that they're an audience that they are curious. There is an opportunity to kind of mold some like ideas and habits and things like that in that younger age group. But also, when you open a young person's mind to something, I have had many experiences where they just get like so excited about it, and it's amazing to see. And they want to take that and they want to take that home with them and share it with their families and share it with their friends. So I think that if we can get in that youth outreach space, those school age students particularly, and really tell that story really well. I think you've touched on that as well, that we need to make sure that we are doing some really good storytelling, making sure that the message is really relevant to those young people so that they can see like just how vital water is to their everyday lives, and educate them on how we can better value and look after our precious water resources. I think that's just an opportunity to have those young people then become advocates for action within their own communities, and they can be the ones to help kind of spread that message among their peers and their families and the wider community. And hopefully we, get that ripple effect so that more people are aware of the value of water, all the work that goes into making sure people can turn on those taps and access clean water.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. And in the process of teaching people that, we can also attract people, which come back to one of the challenges,
Yeah.
and like people that get really into understanding how it works and eventually finding their way into the sector. It happens all the time. We all have
Yeah.
some sort of connection to water that in some way, conscious or unconsciously, actually brought us to work here. So definitely I think, yeah, that is kind of one of the best ways that we can do it. Shifting from audiences and who to reach, Sam, I wonder, interested in your thoughts on who do you think are those most powerful messengers, like people that can talk for our sector, that are outside our sector, that could actually help us spread the word about water and its importance.
Before getting into the kind of people who can advocate for the sector, at the moment we're currently, and it's related. At the moment we're currently standing up the Beyond Zero Specialist Network, which is the first AWA's first new specialist network in 30 years. And the idea behind the specialist network is to engage broadly within the industry and bring together academia, industry, construction, but also outside of the industry, because it's getting to net zero and beyond is one of the biggest challenges of our generation. And AWA has such a platform to bring together different people, different industries, and the idea of this specialist network is to do that. So if there's anyone interested in getting involved, please reach out. And there are three sectors when we start to talk about kind of water being fundamental outside of the water industry itself. That there's three sectors that do come to mind, and we've seen projects fall over where water hasn't been appropriately considered, and that's, I think, is around food, energy, and computing. So as a water industry, that's where that cross industry collaboration becomes so fundamental and important to really advocate for the importance and not take for granted water as I will just stick in a desal plant and make it work. It's certainly not as simple as that. And I think most of your audience would appreciate that. But certainly once you just take a step outside of the water industry, you do see very different perspectives from what we're used to. In terms of the most powerful messages, I would love to see a future where we have our politicians right across water issues in the same way as if you go to Singapore, where water is a national security issue, and hear some of the politicians speak really knowledgeably about water issues and some of the complexities and subtleties. It'd be great to see a future where Australia's politicians can also advocate for the industry and also be informed on some of the complex challenges that we've already talked to today.
Yeah, I think you raise an important point, and it goes back to like water being that thread that connects everything and is all of those measured. That's great three examples of sectors that are highly reliable on water, and that we could have more conversations. I'm sure there's people in the industry, and there are conversations going on. But if we strengthen that, they can help us as well, spreading the word and the way we get into to getting water and to being a bit more visible with government and all of that. So it's a great idea there.
Yeah, starting onto the radar of like discussions around the enormous water use in data centers, and
For sure.
we're going through the clean energy transition where coal power plants are shutting down, which also have broad uses. So just again, Chelsea talked about systems thinking and planning and being aware of some of these upcoming big issues. That's where both we need advocates within the water industry and outside of it to
And
be able
out
to
and be able to have those conversations. Yeah, for sure.
challenge.
And like, I was interested in both of your ideas in this. Like, if we're talking about like how to get more visibility into water, how to do it with younger generations and with sectors that we work all the time, or we should be working more. If we want the public to care about water as much as we do, because let's face it, we care a lot. What do you think is the key message that we should be sharing?
The messaging around a lot of these things is really important, and the way we talk about it results in people engaging and disengaging with the conversation. And there's been a lot of work around this in the climate space, and love for future generations is the message that consistently ranks as the most effective. And there's nothing more intergenerational than water, protecting and preserving our waterways and investing in future resilience to deliver reliable, safe, high quality water for generations to come. I think that solutions focus and the love for future generations is a really positive frame that we can return to that does connect with people.
Yeah, I like that. I like that positive spin and how you basically taking care for your future, for the future people of your family and your communities. How about you, Chelsea? What do you think that message should be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have both touched on the really like important aspects of that in many ways, and I really think it is about like really highlighting, it's not just about the water that we drink. Like water is intrinsic in so many parts of our lives. It's, we need it to grow our food, to sustain our health, it drives our economies and connects us to nature as well. You know, people like getting out in nature near bodies of water as well, and we want to make sure that we're keeping those clean and healthy too. So yeah, I think going back to what I was saying before, it's really needing to demonstrate that relevance and making it really relevant to people's lives. So like I absolutely agree with Sam. There's going to be a lot of people who really resonate with making sure that we're looking after and making sure that we have safe drinking water for our kids and future generations. But you know, if you're talking to a younger audience, maybe it's even like you know, you need water to irrigate the grass, so you've got a nice soccer pitch to play on, you know, things like that. So really just trying to make it relevant to the people that we're talking to. And I think it's also about having that shared responsibility. Like it's not just on people working in the water sector to be looking after our water resources. I think we can be inviting people into the solution and letting them know that we all have a role to play. And I think, I guess, an interesting experience for people as well, and part of Water Week, I believe, as well, is Water Night, where people are challenged to not, you know, use any water for a few hours in their evening. And I think experiences like that really open people's eyes to just how much they are taking water for granted and just turning on taps without realizing it, in some places anyway. So yeah, I think just doing what we can to open people's eyes to all the work that goes on behind the scenes, but then also just like how much water plays a role in everyone's lives as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And we actually did have Chris Philpott from the Water Conservancy last year doing an episode exactly on that, on Water Night. So he's doing it again, of course. So you can go and have a listen on that. The ideas are exactly the same. And the night is also National Water Week. So it'll be this week. So I encourage everyone to jump in into that activity with you and your family. But yeah, I love how all of us, we just see both opportunities and that responsibility as well. And I like that touch that you do. And the Chelsea is the responsibility, not only of us, of everyone to understand kind of the value of water and what is the little things that they can do in a day to day to bring that focus. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people understand the value of it, bring it back to focus on the work that goes behind securing it for the future. This has been an amazing conversation. We have not spent a lot of time hearing from these amazing young water professionals today, and it's been amazing to get your perspective, Sam and Chelsea, and be able to give a bit of our perspective as well, which I kind of do all the time when I ask my questions. But you know, I had a bit of more space today. For this season finale, we also wanted to bring an external view, like from this kind of young water professional community, to round out the conversation, which is why we have invited the president of the Australian Water Association to join us now and share his thoughts on these questions. So I'll be back with you, Sam and Chelsea, in a heartbeat. I'm really pleased to welcome Kevin Werksman, the president of the Australian Water Association. Kevin has been leading and being part of AWA through some exciting initiatives and is passionate about supporting the next generation of water professionals. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jess. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin, we have been hearing some great perspectives from Sam, from Chelsea, and myself a bit today as the last three young water professionals of the year from AWA, which we have gathered for this very special conversation. But I would really like to get your thoughts on these same topics that we have been talking. From your perspective to start with, what do you see as the most pressing challenge for the Australian water industry now, and how is AWA helping the sector address it?
I think it's a little hard to choose a single challenge, Jess, but maybe you'll give me the room to share three. And I'm thinking about these three in terms of overall outcomes that we want to achieve. So the first one is right now, we want to be able to achieve affordable water services to our consumers and for the environment. And that's a real challenge because we're faced with aging assets. We need to be able to apply a TOTEX approach to minimize or optimize the spend with respect to those aging assets. We need to engage our supply chain and create the capability to be able to have the most efficient way of delivering our services in the context of that. We're faced with expectations in terms of the services that we've got and getting the right balance in terms of what's the risks that people can accept in terms of their water services or impact on the environment versus what we can't is a real challenge. And then making sure that is affordable. Equally, getting better at valuing water and therefore knowing what we should be valuing. Finally, in terms of the here and now and having, affordable approach to the world, we've got to be servicing growth. And when we're servicing growth, we need to be thinking about equity for the future generations as well as for now. And that creates, questions in terms of what we should be affording versus what others should be affording. Similarly, when we're talking about growth, we can't talk about that without considering a different level of servicing for our cities versus our regions, versus for our remote communities, and getting that equity and that affordability and that subsidization level right. And then looking at the next horizon, similarly, we've got sort of three lenses we can look at around our sustainable water future, which is at the heart of AWA, where, thinking about a sustainable water future, we want that to be one where we're water resilient, and we got really real confidence that we're going to have sufficient water or management of water in the context of climate change. Are we achieving the transparency we need to be able to allow us to invest properly or map the right pathway to achieve water resilience? Have we got the confidence and the trust to be able to put all options on the table in terms of the approach to achieve water resilience? The future that we've got is one where we want to be providing equitable service level all around the country. How do we achieve that in the context of the level of technology change that we're seeing at the moment? So what's the AI future look like, the automation future look like, and how are we transforming to enable that? How are we creating a future there where we're not losing jobs, but where our people need to have the capability to engage and deliver more in that environment? How are we dealing with the right level of risk in the future around micropollutants that we're getting better and better at understanding the risks around? How are we dealing with the environment in the future? And are we finally dealing and talking about one water instead of separate, metropolitan water,
Silos.
wastewater services,
Yeah.
stormwater services, water catchments? What does an integrated future look like? So we've got a really healthy environment so that, we can love our environment.
Wow, that was such a good summary. It almost summarizes all the episodes I've had during the season, and those are the challenges that we were just discussing with Sam and Chelsea around water security and some of the future of our workforce in here. So, and I see the Australian Water Association role as that institution that really connects us all and helps us exchanging ideas and think together and really bring us together to challenge and to tackle all of these challenges that you have described. Indeed. The other thing we were talking with Sam and Chelsea was around the young water professionals. We talk about like the different things that we have been involved as winners of this award, but in general, the community. What role do you think young water professionals play in the future of water in Australia, and how can AWA best support it?
So I'm really proud of the investment that AWA has made into young water professionals over the past years, over a long period of time, and how the board has really supported that. And I think what we've seen is the creation of a thriving young water professional community, a real value associated with recognizing our young water professionals like yourself, Jess, and Sam and Chelsea before you, and how our young water professionals can connect together, inspire each other, and come up with new ideas. Aligned with AWA's new strategy 2030, which is around how can we transform ourselves to achieve a sustainable water future. I'd love to see our young water professionals take a more active role in that, of playing the persona of the party that's looking to the future. If we look at the strategy, and there's three pillars to the strategy, one of them is how we inspire transformation in the sector. So what are we doing in terms of shining a light on the impact of climate change, the need for investments, and the different options that are on the table, including purified recycled water? What are we doing to shine a light on the funding that's there for water or that isn't there for water? How many people in Australia know how much of our rates actually go to pay dividends back to government that just goes into the general coffer, for example? So shining a light, inspiring the transformation, the funding, the outcomes that we need. What role can we create for our young water professionals to be driving the areas that we need to shine that light and to be part of shining that light within our broader community and engaging further versus within themselves? Our second pillar, the strategies around fostering cross-sector collaboration. What role can we have? And I think a role that we should be having for our young water professionals when we're looking at cross-sector collaboration is, what's the cross-sector collaboration we want for the future that we should be seeing through an intergenerational lens? So, our young water professionals may be the best to help to frame up the circular economy future that we want. Or thinking about, the demand that data centers might have in the world, and how best should we engage with that market? Should we be creating some water credits that, AI and data centers should have to pay for to be able to fund additional manufactured water so that we're not detracting from our limited resources? As opposed to the traditional way of saying, well, they have to find their own recycled water that they serve directly in site. Maybe it's around supporting purified recycled water anywhere in the system. And young water professionals, I think, can have such a powerful role in thinking about, well, what's the future that we need to plan around that? And therefore, what should we be focused on right now? And then last but not least, what we've called out from AWA is the importance of growing our capability. And if we're thinking about growing that capability, we have to ask not only what's the capability we need now, but what's the capability we're going to need in the future? Who better to engage in that question than our young water professionals? So, what I'm looking forward to is yourself and our young water professionals starting to engage a lot more in our other forums to wear that hat of what's our sustainable water future in the future and how do we get there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great way. And it connects really well to the stuff that we were just chatting with Sam and Chelsea around connecting with our broader community, which I'm about to ask another question on it, but also connecting with those other sectors that really the theme of National Water Week being this week of like bringing water to focus and understanding that is really the threat of a lot of, if not all of the things that we have in our society. And we have a big responsibility as it is as young water professionals as well, but in thinking about that future, and thinking about those challenges and thinking what do we need to do differently. And as Chelsea mentioned, is a matter of like start doing it now. Like we are the future of the industry, but we're right now doing stuff here. What can we start doing and make our voice heard in our day-to-days and in these communities and in these forums to contribute. So definitely, yes. And I guess coming back to, you touch a little bit on like the community and how do we talk about the value as well. One of the themes that it's close to my heart is how do we really give visibility to water issues and to water in general beyond our own sector. We talk a little bit about the other sectors, the data center, a little bit of food industry, mining, all of this. But what do you think is needed for us to reach and connect with the broader community?
It's a very good question, Jess. So it's why I've been quite passionate about us engaging more in the policy space, in the adequacy space, in the cross-sector collaboration space, because I think we've got such passion for the future that we'd like to see as water professionals or as people who love water, like myself. We want a sustainable water future, but in order to get there, we need to bring people on board that are part of our broader community and part of other sectors. So, the value of the ministerial engagements that we've been bringing to life in each of our states, the value of, round tables that we need to be investing in, the value of linking with the regulators that we've got out there, of doing it in collaboration with some of our other partners like WASA.
Yeah.
The power of the conferences like Connected by Water that, brings people from mining to the table or from the food industry or the irrigation industry. Just, a little anecdote. Recently, I was at our TAS conference, which is a reimagined conference actually this year, because there was the biosolids conference early in the year. So they decided not to do a formal conference. They instead did a longer breakfast, engaging with the minister, and then they did some site walks. And what was magical is that in those site walks, we actually had many of the conversations that we'd have in a conference, but in the context of also looking around the assets and understanding how it comes to life. But look, as part of that engagement, they brought Tas Irrigation to the table, who spoke. And, one of the things I heard from Tas Irrigation was not only do they welcome greater collaboration with water utilities, but they welcome AWA being an umbrella that allows better connectivity between the regional and irrigation asset managers across the country. So, I do feel that our role is around connectivity and driving that collaboration, having shared understandings, and through that all, building a stronger narrative of what's the value of water, how should we all be valuing this, and how can we support all of us in terms of managing that for a better future.
Yeah, I think that's again like a really good example, especially that connected with water and new events and new spaces that AWA is creating to get that like with connection with all the sectors and eventually with the broader community as
And
well.
I should mention, of course, next March, we'll be having our first National Policy Forum in Canberra too.
Ooh.
And, anyone that's got any ideas on what they'd like to see that bring to life, now's a great time to engage with us around this. And,
Excellent.
that'll be another opportunity for our young water professionals, together with, people who really care about our future, to be engaging, and where we want to bring something to life that brings in some of the people that form policy from governments or our regulators or people that have had experience in looking at, you know, shaping policy or sharing the importance of the role of an area of a sector to other sectors. It wouldn't be magical if, in the same way that people look at a public transport project like a tram in terms of shaping a city, we look at our water infrastructure projects also as should be city shaping projects, or as region shaping, or as community shaping
Absolutely.
projects.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting to know like that event will happen next year. And definitely if you are interested, get in touch with your member engagement manager, anyone you know that is involved with AWA, and they will point you the right way. Before we wrap up, Kevin, I just really want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible support that we have had, or I have had, from the Australian Water Association this season with this project, my crazy passion project, through the Chris Davis AM Fellowship. Honestly, the support of AWA has not only made it possible to bring these conversations to life in season 2, but also helped us secure some of the resources and some of the tools that we need to continue these podcasts into the future. And I guess with that in mind, I was interested in your thoughts on like on these type of fellowships and this type of support. What do you think is important for AWA to support these projects that give visibility to water and bring a bit of new voices into the conversation?
So we had unanimous alignment from our board in awarding the fellowship to yourself in the year, Jess, because the importance of these fellowships is in supporting the impact that we want to make in terms of our strategy. And, we are an impact associated, an impact association. We want to create a sustainable water future. So being able to invest in projects that help to give a greater voice to water, or that help to research into something that will bring a sustainable future to life, it's about the amplification that we can get from that. And, I think your podcast has shared so many stories, and it's so much value around understanding water, and in a way that hopefully is engaging and enjoyable to meet people that connect. And the more people that are aware, the easier it is for us to move towards a sustainable water future.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And yes, I do try to make my conversations as engaging and as possible, even with some really technical problems and
Even with
things that we
someone as
get
boring
into.
as me.
No, no, no. You have been absolutely wonderful. And thank you very much for all the support that AWA has had, and for you to come into into this podcast episode and accepting to join us representing the AWA. So thank you very much for your words. And I'm just thinking now is National Water Week. So we probably are learning today or this week about the new winner of the Chris Davis AM Fellowship. So in advance, I don't know who's the winner, but like congratulations. And I wish all the best in that new project that will be supported by this fellowship in 2026.
Fabulous. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you, Kevin. Before we wrap up completely, we can't leave out our traditional closing questions. So I have asked Chelsea and Sam to help me run this last section. So let's just go back to them now. So how would you explain your work to your mate or your friend over there in Cambodia who knows nothing about this sector? Chelsea.
It's a good question. I like to think of it sometimes as people working in the water sector like the backstage crew in the theatre show. Like they're absolutely essential to keep everything running, but they are behind the scenes where you don't really see them. And so they don't necessarily always get not necessarily accolades, but people just don't realize everything that is going on behind the scenes. So, I like to say that I am part of a big community who is working to make sure that that people can turn on their taps or flush their toilets and not really have to think about where the water is coming from or where the waste is going to. So I guess in terms of a bit of an analogy to try and get some relatability in there, that's how I sometimes try to explain it to people.
Lovely. Yeah, I like that analogy with the backstage and everything. How about you, Sam? How would you explain your work to your friend that knows nothing about what we do?
I try to keep it simple and say it take great joy in finding value where others don't think that there's value. So turning what is labeled as waste into something valuable is where my great passion lies.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's a really good way to put it. Thanks.
I'm going to ask, what would be your message to young water professionals who might be listening to you right now? And I'm going to throw to Jess first.
I actually just realized I've never had an answer for this. I'm used to asking the question, but I think connect with your purpose is something that gets me by every day. Not every day is easy. Not every day is all rainbows and shiny things in the industry. Also, most of the days is not. You might be just writing an email. You might be just working on a spreadsheet. You might be just looking at a drawing for the gazillionth time trying to fix something. But connect with that purpose that that what you do is you may think is a small contribution, but actually things wouldn't happen if you're not there doing your job. So just connect with that purpose again and trust that your career will grow in a way that you will be able to contribute to this wonderful sector. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Sam?
Be curious, give it a try, and your voice is valuable. So if you've got an idea, speak up and make that voice heard.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that one thing that can sometimes come across is people saying that young water professionals are the future of the sector. But I think it's really important, like we're part of the present. We do have valuable insights that we can add now.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yes. And now I've got a question for both of you, starting with you, Jess. Why do you work in the sector?
Yeah, my road to the water sector was a funny one. I started with civil engineering, so not knowing anything about water, or not consciously kind of choosing water as part of my civil engineering degree. And I took a class, fluid mechanics, and I absolutely hated it. It was so much full of physics. It was like tedious. I didn't like the lecturer. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put a lot of effort into this because I really don't like this guy. He might be listening to this because he's one of my greatest mentors and my academic father, so to speak. And I did such a good effort. And at the end of the semester, they were like, hey, you want to come and work for us in summer school or like whatever research was? And, I'm a student. I need some money. So I said yes. And I never looked back. Honestly, that course that it was not my favorite thing, it then opened those doors to this amazing sector. And I honestly have never looked back since the middle of my undergrad degree. And I'm very fortunate that I put all that effort there and that I actually see the value of it past all the physics and all of that. And actually I ended up teaching the course. to close the loop of the irony here.
And we're very grateful that you went in this direction on the fork in the road. And Elsie, why do you work in water?
Yeah, I mean, I guess similar experience in that it was like a little bit subconscious, probably studying chemical and environmental engineering, but never like really specifically looking into the water sector until I, found a graduate role to apply for, and but was pretty happy. But I think we've touched on it a lot throughout this episode, that it really comes down to that sense of purpose. I think working in the water sector, it's a very purpose-driven career. You know that you are creating impact in the work that you do, making sure that we have this vital resource for communities all around the world. And the fact that it is purpose-driven means that there's incredible people who are working in the industry as well. And I get to work with them every day, and I just love it.
Amazing. Thank you guys for helping me in this last section as well. Honestly, Chelsea, Sam, thank you very much for joining me today. This has been one of my favorite conversations and get to learn from you every time I talk to you, if it is at a coffee machine in a conference or when I reach out for anything, you're always there to help. You're always there, open to share your experiences and insights. So thank you very much. I love this conversation. It was fantastic to hear your perspectives today.
Me too. Thanks, Jess. Thanks,
Yeah,
Chelsea.
thank you for having us.
And to our listeners, a huge thank you for tuning in and supporting our Water Connection throughout this season 2 in 2025. Your feedback and support is honestly what keeps this project going and was a big part of this season finale episode with the survey we ran earlier this year. The good news is that the podcast will be back in 2026. I'm committed to keep doing it. And we're already looking out for partners and sponsors to help us keep these conversations going. So if you're interested, check out our website for more information or reach out to me. In the meantime, make sure you follow us on social media so you can stay connected and get updates while we prepare for season 3 in 2026. From all of us here, thank you for listening. And remember, keep your curiosity flowing. I will see you next year.